would, if possible, have a collaboration so that with this hand-holding, we can grow together globally. So this, we have a very accomplished foreign faculty, Professor Arvind Rajgopal sir, and I feel that this course on media, law and world order would be very enriching for you. So I wish you all the best and happy learning. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I understand that the participants are coming from various occupations as well as this is the first time, I guess, the students, research scholars, faculty members, even outside the faculty members from various media allied fields are coming together. So very few occasions we are together for this learning, and the presence of Vice Chancellor signifies the initiative which we have taken. I request Honorable Vice Chancellor sir to share few thoughts on this inaugural lecture. Thank you, sir.
Namaskar, good morning, and welcome to the beautiful campus of Savitribai Phule Pune University. As you know that Savitribai Phule Pune University is 75-year-old institute. It is the second largest university in the state of Maharashtra. Pune being a cultural city, it's an education hub, auto hub, IT hub, and now gaining new identity as biodesign, bioengineering hub. Of course, mass and media is one of the mandate of this particular city. The city is growing, and there are more than 28 universities in Pune itself. Being a state university, second largest, 750,000 students at one point of time, more than 1,200 institute affiliated with us. This is what the quantum and the university jurisdiction is. Okay, so we have 411 acres campus here. There are 4 national institutes on campus. Inter-University Astronomy, Astrophysics, NCRA, NCCS, and CDAC. These are the 4 institutes on campus. We have a good hand-holding with this all national institutes. Apart from that, in the periphery of 5 kilometers, you will find out, okay, there are more than 10 institutes, okay, which is of national importance, and also the, I would say, Defense Institute. That's how we are located, and we have a good cooperation and collaboration with all these institutes, and therefore, the academics on the campus is very vibrant. For this particular GAN program, we have our esteemed guest and the resource person, Professor Arvind Rajgopal, who has come all the way from New York University, and who will be sharing his experience and expertise with all of us. And for this program, as Professor Madhvi has rightly mentioned, that okay, it's a heterogeneous group where students, faculty members, professionals are together. And apart from the expertise from the resource person, probably there will be a good exchange of thoughts from professional to the students, and then how they have to really excel in their career in order to reach to the society. I think this will be a good discussion and deliberation in this particular GAN program, which is the uniqueness which I can see in this particular program. As the title says, that's media, law, and world order. Okay, so I mean, when the mass media comes together, okay, you have to follow certain norms, okay, and whether we are really following the ethics and other things, okay, it's really important. Otherwise, from pandemic, everyone has realized that, okay, like the digitization and the digital life has really changed a lot. And if my phone doesn't ring in next 2 minutes, I feel that, okay, I'm isolated from the society. That's what the things are. Another experience I would like to share with you, that even I have myself experience, okay, like my daughter was in 12th, and then of course every 12th student has to go to the class. It's unwritten rule, okay? And then even though I'm a physics professor, I have to send her to physics class for some reason, that she said that you are a good teacher, you teach very well, but that sentence and the statement which is required in the examination, if doesn't come, it doesn't pay me, okay? And there was a question on Kirchhoff's law. And in their Kirchhoff's law in the textbook, okay, they have a statement of equivalent. I said effective. It's the same word, okay? And she has written effective, and finally she got one less mark. She said, okay, like, with you probably I'll not get number, okay? And therefore, okay, and then after that, okay, what I have observed that, okay, all the students, when they come out from the class, without saying hello to their own parents who are waiting there in the lobby or maybe at the parking to get their word outside from the class, everyone opens their phone number and then, okay, they looks at, okay, who has contacted them. I mean, okay, this is what the situation is. So we are all the way connected with the friends, but not with the parents and with the family members. This is what the observation is. Second observation, the family goes to the dinner or, I'm okay, for in the hotel, and everyone is busy with their own phone. What for it is? And I think I have seen the initiative of, in some of the cafeteria, okay, they said they cannot say phones are not allowed, but they have put the jammers. So no range, therefore at least they are sitting quietly and then at least talking with their own family members. I think this is what a situation with this new communication system, I think the message has to go to the society that when you are together, okay, spend quality time. And that's what I think probably from date 1 to the 15th in the state of Maharashtra, we are having the campaign of book reading. So that, okay, at least they will open up the book, okay, and physical book reading. And the earlier, okay, like we had that, okay, 1 hour book reading, okay, Shantata Punekar Vachat Ahet. So be quiet, all the Puneites are reading the books, and then everyone was reading, even rickshawala stop his rickshaw and then read the book. Now this campaign for this 15 days, okay, you read a book and now write a review on that, what exactly you have done. Otherwise, it's not just campaign, okay, just to read and take a photograph and then put it on the Instagram or wherever it is, okay. So instead of that, really read it and then see that. But the analysis which we are doing, okay, like what exactly professor is reading, what exactly he is reading, and then it shows that, okay, it's a Gaussian distribution, and most of the people, okay, who are reading in this period, okay, they are mostly reading historical things. High-end science and other things are reading very less, okay. So this is what analysis part we have been doing at the back end, and we almost got more than 11 lakhs 11,000 data set, okay, which books people are reading. So back end we are doing the analysis, and this is what the strength of the SPPU, okay, where we are trying to analyze what exactly the society is looking for, and the role of media people is really important. Because what you give to the society, that is being considered as a right thing on that day before the analysis is done, okay. So they trust, okay, and I think when the trusting relations are there, okay, like we have to really give true information to the society, and then I think that's how the role of everyone is. And therefore the mandate in the course says that, okay, law, I mean, okay, like what exactly it is, okay, and how it has to be related as far as the national and international laws are concerned. With this brief, once again, I welcome you, and I hope that you will have a good time on campus. It's a beautiful campus, okay, move around those who are from outside. Those who are from inside, okay, make sure that, okay, your friends in this particular group, okay, they will really visit couple of things. We have a heritage walk on campus. The building here, okay, it's a heritage building. We have a good tunnel there. I think if profs get the chance, okay, it will be good to have that particular things done. Apart from that, okay, as far as the science and technology is concerned, we have a rich research going on campus. You name the equipment, it's present on the campus. That's how we have been doing. As far as the internationalization of higher education is concerned, Savitribai Phule Pune University is the first state university which has opened its own campus in Qatar, and this year Prof will be opening 4 more campuses from June, July onwards. Okay, one will be in Kazakhstan, Georgia, then Dubai, and Kyrgyzstan. So this is what we have been doing as far as the internationalization is concerned. We have tie-up with the state universities in US and universities in Melbourne. Since last 6-7 years, we have been running a course with Melbourne University. And the question, when the foreign university comes to the campus, okay, the first question they ask, okay, how do we maintain the quality of the education? And the answer which was given to them that, okay, like, okay, I teach the course in the class, and you set the paper from US. And if my students are doing quite well, that's fine. Okay, then we are doing quite well. But the next point, okay, like let's do the thing. Okay, like next time you teach the class, I'll set the question paper. My turn comes later on. So how to set the paper is in my hand later on. Then that gives the quality of education. We give the confidence to the foreign partner that okay, we are doing quite well as far as the internationalization is concerned. We have come up with the national education policy, which has given us the freedom and also little flexibility to have 2 years in SPPU and 2 years outside. Okay, so from this year onwards, okay, the students will be doing half of the course in SPPU, and probably they will be going to our foreign partners. Okay, let's say Melbourne University. We have a tie-up with Drexel University, so that okay, they will have 1 year here. So basically, how to make the same education economically viable, so that the students spend less amount okay on their education. So it's almost 50% they can save in the education system. This is what we have been doing. I hope once again I welcome you on this campus, and hope that the deliberation and discussion in this particular GAN program will give some takeaway home message, okay, which you will pass on to your colleagues, okay, who are working in the same field. Okay, with this brief, I wish good success to this course, and on behalf of the university, I welcome Prof on the campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. As you rightly said that this course is something which we wanted a face-to-face communication, not doing online, because professor would have been available doing the course from US, and we would have this post-pandemic, online sessions. But this is going to be intensive one-to-one, a small group, face-to-face kind of a course, and that is what we are looking forward in this particular program. I now request Vice Chancellor sir to felicitate our chief guest today before I introduce Professor to all of you. Vicky, get that. Welcome the. Yeah.
Well, this makes you an alumni of the institute.
You had a high-level conference at Princeton University. What are American values? What should we tell the world? How do we lead the world? Yeah. So this was a moment actually of, yes, now world leadership has fallen into the hands of the United States. How do we manage it? Okay, many things went on in many fields. What I am focusing on here is one line of that process which has received very little attention for reasons that I will also explain. It was not an innocent overlooking of some important fact. This idea that information should be free and information flow should be free. This was an idea that came up during World War II when the American wire service agencies were trying to collect news from South America, from other parts of the world, and they found that Associated Press, United Press were resisted by the European cartels, by Reuters, by Wolf, by Havas, Agence France Presse. They were resisting US intervention into those markets. That gave rise to a formula, free flow of information, which was taken up in the diplomatic circles by people like John Foster Dulles, who became Secretary of State, very famous Cold Warrior. And John Foster Dulles at one point said in 1945, if I was to be allowed 1 point foreign policy agenda, just 1 point, it would be the free flow of information. Okay, now you think about it. What is going on? Why would the free flow of information serve American interests? So if you think about that, well, 1945, United States owned half the world's media or more. Europe, most of Europe lay in shambles. Their infrastructure was weakened, destroyed. And the calculation was that if information is allowed to flow freely, you are basically saying every country that is trying to limit foreign news from coming in, foreign influence, foreign ideas from coming in, we can call them authoritarian. And that was not an abstract calculation. This was, of course, the birth of the Cold War, the birth of the war between West and communist countries, which were, for these purposes, considered in the East. Yeah? And the calculation was that free flow of information will eventually, over the long run, destroy communism, and capitalism will flourish without any opposition. Now, if we look at it from 2025, that prediction which John Foster Dulles made in the late 1940s has come true. It has come true. Only capitalism flourishes. Any opposition to capitalism can have political overtones and be subject to various kinds of interpretation. But the world that was envisioned of freedom, harmony, democracy, unity, cooperation, that all of those outcomes which were anticipated and expected from media have not been realized. Yeah, so I'm beginning this class with this kind of paradox that media were assumed to be the enablers and institutions of democracy. What we see today is, and I think the Vice Chancellor's remarks also drew attention to that, the more media we have does not lead to an increase in democracy. It can easily go the other way. It can easily go the other way. Yeah? So how did this happen? Now I come to my third term of law. So, and I'll introduce this remark with a sort of historical point. In 1936, the United States passed its Major Communication Act, 1936. And of course, media were growing by leaps and bounds in the following years. The next legislation United States passed on media was after the end of the Cold War, 1996. In other words, the period when media was most important to fight the Cold War, to broadcast free information across the world, make free flow of information possible across the world. During that time, there was no legislation whatsoever on media in the world's most powerful country in the world. Yeah? So what that suggested was a lot of the decisions about media were happening through consensus, through informal means, and that legislation was not actually the site of policy pronouncement. In fact, the words media and policy never went together. In the United States, policy was a bad word. It suggested communism, socialism, state control. Everything has to be creative, spontaneous, bottom up, So the fact that law was kept out of media has returned to haunt us today. Because today we notice that without law, without regulation, media are guaranteed to create chaos. Guaranteed to create chaos. But since we have had now 75 years of practice in thinking that media and law should not go together, because America has shown the way that media have to be free, the information flow has to be free, there is a great deal of resistance even at the popular level. Yeah? Or many disagreements are possible. To arrive at ways of thinking about regulation for media is not only a policy challenge, it's a cultural challenge. We have to surmount that cultural challenge. Yeah? So those are the sort of broad sketches with which I would introduce my topic, and I don't want to go on and on because I know our Vice Chancellor is busy, and but that outlines the theme that I'm trying to explore in this short 10-day class. Yeah? So maybe I'll pause here.
Thank you so much, Professor Rajgopal, for the introductory remarks. We'll break here for a 5 minutes tea break, And then, of course, we will resume back for the introductions of the candidates who have enrolled for this course. Of course, the course will definitely begin from tomorrow with the brief introductions of all the participants and the course schedule which was written and already shared with you through the brochure. We'll begin with the course curriculum from tomorrow onwards. Thank you so much for coming to this inaugural session. And especially I thank Vice Chancellor to be here and definitely giving time to this particular program, though he is busy with his own schedule. Those who are not from Pune University, Professor Suresh Gosavi is from pure sciences, did his PhD from electronic sciences, but a physics professor who is acclaimed with many publications and working thoroughly. A researcher and at the same time now a good administrator, which actually can see kind of a work he's doing right now. Thank you so much, sir, for spending your valuable time and giving some time to Department of Media and Communication Studies. We are really thankful that you have come first time as a Vice Chancellor to this department. Please have a look at our studios, which are again the funding you have we have received through your help, and your support is really required to have programs like this and also to develop some infrastructural development. Thank you so much. Ma'am, thank you so much for reorienting the entire GYAN, and we'll break here now and then we'll resume back. Thank you so much.
just now in the middle of the talk. Now I'm okay. Okay, so I'll elaborate some of the points I already made, and feel free to jump in if you have any questions. Yeah. As I said at the outset, the expectation was that more media will lead to a better democracy, more media will lead to more enlightenment. That was the expectation. And somehow you can't have enough of media, can't have enough of a good thing. More, always good. That was the very naive, right? Very naive, very simplistic. Some of you may have encountered, Jacques Derrida, who talks about Plato, philosopher Plato. And I just want to introduce this one concept which is very important, pharmakon. Yeah, pharmakon, I don't know, yeah. So basically what Plato, philosopher many years ago now, what he said is that the pharmakon is something that can cure, it can also kill. Yeah? So very simple idea that everything has to be in moderation. You don't put too much of anything. Yeah, so anything that can cure, that can have a good effect, can also have a bad effect. That's a general idea about technology. All technology is, you can say, bivalent. Yeah? This is reflected in the Greek myth of the god who stole fire from the gods and gave it to men. Yeah, Prometheus. Yeah, Prometheus. Yeah, so this fire in this Greek mythology represented technology. It is both. It has a curative property. It is also dangerous property. Can consume, can kill. Yeah, so the thinking about media, we can see at the very outset, has been extremely naive, extremely one-sided. Yeah, and in fact, there's a much longer tradition of being aware of the dangers of media, dangers of technology. Yeah. Now, specifically, if you think about India, we notice an increase in the enclaving of media consumption. You may be consuming media, but others are consuming different media. And especially we see that meaningful, productive dialogue is often, it was assumed that there will be one big public sphere, everybody will be able to dialogue within it and thereby achieve mutual understanding, harmony, and so on. Instead, what we witness today is a fragmentation, enormous fragmentation of media, so that in fact you don't have an automatic production of harmony. In fact, the opposite result is very often achieved instead. Yeah? Discord, outrage, more emotion, less reason. Yeah? And again, this is all contrary to expectations. Our knowledge of the world increasingly is filtered through the media. So, in a sense, the word media has become a proxy for the world as such, or society as such. The media is saying this, that often stands for all the knowledge. So, that suggests the extent to which media has become a filter through which we engage with the world. Yeah? And as I mentioned, there's a history to this way of thinking about this word, media, as that kind of a proxy or representation for the world at large. That's this Cold War history, yeah? Cold War history where the United States is looking for a way to assert its influence without following the European imperial tradition. What was the European imperial tradition? It was to say English civilization is superior, French civilization is superior, Dutch civilization is superior, you be like us, you will never be like us, but you try, it's okay, we'll help you, you try. That was the approach in general in the pre-World War II period, you can say, yeah? In the post-World War II period, when you had the United States becoming world leader, yeah, USB-C, no? I got you. So the manifesto or the program for media influence is actually spelt out by a media baron, an American media baron, in a 1941 essay published in a magazine that he owned. Here I'm talking about Henry Luce. Henry Luce, who was the owner of Time magazine, Life magazine, Sports Illustrated, Fortune magazine. He was the biggest media baron in the United States, most influential man. Yeah? And in 1941, he published an essay looking at the World War, looking at the European chaos. He said America can become the world leader now. And in fact, the world wants America to become leader. And if you look at the world everywhere, everyone loves American products. Everyone is watching American movies, listening to American songs. In a way, he was describing what, after the end of the Cold War, came to be known as soft power. Yeah? But this was before that term had been arrived at. So he said, this is the American century. We have to seize the opportunity and make America the world leader, because we are so good, everybody will be happier. Right? We are not like the British imperialists. We're not like the French imperialists. We will give everybody a fair deal, because that's who we are. We are democratic, we are fair, treat everybody equally, and everybody will be celebrating if we do this. Now, that's I won't go into what happened to the American century except peripherally. My question is, what is the uptake in India? How does it occur? Yeah. Now here it's a longer history, of course. You would all be knowing the national struggle, freedom struggle, where, of course, media played a role. And here you had a broadly division between English language media, which was the colonial media. It spoke to the English elite, who it reflected their own viewpoint. And then there were Indian language, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, this, that, and the other, where it was much closer to the people and tended to be much more suspicious of British colonial rule. Yeah, that's the so how did the colonial elite see the Indian language media? They saw it as anti-national, right? Because they were the true nationalists. They knew what India stood for. They were able to bridge all the cultural differences. They represented the highest level of commonality in their minds. And so the Indian media in the colonial viewpoint was anti-national. And what we witnessed from the transition from the pre-independence to the post-independence period is the media were initially anti-national, positioned as anti-national, and after 1947, they are positioned as nationalist. That's a very rough way to describe how media shift and transform during the 20th century. Nationalism becomes the default. Everybody has to be nationalist. There is no discussion what is nationalism, I have these disagreements, this other view. There was no such thing. There is one Indian nation, there is one Indian nationalism, one nationalist party, Congress party, dominant party. Everybody follows that. Yeah, so nationalism was not a subject where there were disagreements possible at that time. And media reflected that. They reinforced it, you could say. Yeah. Now, in one interesting respect, the media could not do what they wanted to do. Okay? They could not achieve that kind of uniformity, that kind of homogeneity. And this was because there had been a freedom struggle. There had been a freedom struggle. Lakhs of people all over the country had participated in protest. And what was their method of protest? When their citizenship was denied, their rights were denied, what was their protest? What was their method? Their method of protest was to break the law, civil disobedience, right? So, in a sense, they were denied the right to political assertion, and they tried to achieve that right by breaking the law, making themselves prominent, getting attention. So media was a part of the nationalist formula for the Indian nationalist formula for achieving influence. As a result of this history, however, breaking the law in the Indian context, as in so many other post-colonial contexts, became, you might say, institutionalized as routine way to do politics. You have a dharna, you have an andolan, morcha, bhuk hartal, gherao. We from A to Z we have vocabulary for the kinds of popular protests that we are staging. Yeah. So, for instance, I'll quote from a Hindustan Times article, December 17, 2024. Opposition leader Mallikarjun Kharge, addressing the Rajya Sabha on 75 years of the Indian Constitution, he referred to the Prime Minister and to the Union Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's speeches in the Lok Sabha, and he said, "You never said what you did for the country or how many times you went to jail." Okay? And you think about it, this is a very distinct post-colonial kind of sentiment. It could not be so clearly understood, in the West. And as it happens, even Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said, I also went to jail. 1971 Satyagraha, I also went to jail. Now, whether he actually went to jail or not is another matter. He has to claim he went to jail. Okay, so that tells you how the law is not rigid. In the understanding of people engaged in popular politics, the law is supposed to be flexible. It's supposed to be bending in response to politics. That remains even today. Yeah. Widespread sentiment. I heard it from someone engaging in protest once in Mumbai. अगर हम बगावत नहीं करते तो सरकार अपनी मनमानी करेगी. So that way revolt is part of the basic vocabulary of politics. What that also means is that media forms can produce unexpected outcomes because they are against the law, they are transgressive. So media forms do not simply reproduce an existing situation, they can proliferate and create totally unexpected outcomes. Yeah? Let me pause here. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, if there's any. Yeah. Yes. Expectations. No, generally, anywhere. Although my historical examples here are post-colonial. No, no, not at all. Not at all. It's just that they're very open. Their very openness makes it risky for any assumption that you will get the desired outcomes. That's all. Yeah. So, for instance, Trump, for example, was, you know. So now I'd like to shift to the question of social science analysis of media. Yeah. And here the most influential analysis has been from broadly Frankfurt School. Yeah. So German Jewish intellectuals who were impacted by Nazism and went to the United States for some time. And what was their conclusion when they lived for several years in the United States, studied US society? Their conclusion was fascism and US capitalist society are in the same, they're in a continuum. Maybe they're different, but one leads to the other. So that was their conclusion. Why did they say that? Anybody? Why did they say that German Nazism, American capitalism, straight line, you know, can move from one to the other without interruption? What was the reason? Anybody? Absolute power. Yes, that's true. But then capitalism allows a certain kind of exercise of rights. You have the right to consume. You have the right to watch media. You have the right to buy things. What they are saying is this very act that appears to be free, and in your personal life it is free. I watch, nobody tells me what I should think. I buy goods, I can enjoy the goods, nobody's telling me. But this process of mediation through commodities and through commodity messages, through commodity communication, is having its own influence which needs to be factored in. And their analysis about how this influence can be understood is that we have one form of mediation that is increasingly connecting every aspect of society. That is through the market. As the market expands, everything is for sale, everything has a purchase price, and the saleability, the exchangeability of every single capacity, object, entity is what unites society more and more. Right? It's the market itself that is uniting us, but what kind of unity does the market give us? The unity that the market gives us, according to the Frankfurt School, is not a genuine unity. It's a unity that presents the image of harmony in order to continue the work of the market. Right? Continuing the work of the market is more important than actual, genuine harmony, unity, etc. Yeah? So this, the word that Adorno and Horkheimer use in their book, Dialectic of Enlightenment, they do not use the word media, okay? That comes much later. But they are noticing that the whole world is now being mediated by capital. That capital is now mediating the world and achieving the presentation of unity. Okay, so this is how the word media actually is, you know, you can see the power of the word media in this usage, that it is actually reflecting the spread and the envelopment by the market of the world, right? And this act of mediation is later come to be symbolized by the institution of the media. Yeah? But first it is capitalism that is understood to mediate everything. That's how the idea initially comes up. Yeah? So now in this analysis of the media, we have the Frankfurt School, as I said, which came out very critical, extremely critical of, you know, society, of culture, of, you know, communication effects and so on. Of course, there was a strong reaction on the American establishment side. Yeah, and you may know some of that. Yeah, strong reaction. They said this whole trend of thinking that people are fools. They're thinking that people are fools, that they're cultural dupes. They are thinking that, you know, media is a kind of injection which is sending people into some false consciousness. All of that is wrong. People are strong, people are intelligent, people are free, people are making up their own minds. Power to the people. Whatever the people say is fine. Hell with Frankfurt School, hell with all these critical theories. So they arrived at a kind of, you can say, rejectionist approach, where their concern was actually to affirm, endorse, and praise the media, because this is where that view took shape. Media are good, more media are even better, even more media are even better than that. Yeah, so an unquestioning validation of media. And why did they do that? Well, this was an American position. You see, this was an American position taken after World War II, when there had been an informal decision that media will represent American power more effectively and more inconspicuously than any other entity, whereas the Europeans at this time were much more critical. They had experienced fascism, they had experienced propaganda, they knew the power of lies, and they rejected this kind of highly simplistic approach that the Americans gave. A few years later, another German theorist arose who kind of made a bridge between the American view and the European view, and that person's name was Jürgen Habermas. Now, Jürgen Habermas is a very, esteemed philosopher, and always the nuances are there, no question about it. But when you look at how Habermas was understood, how he was positioned, what ideas were taken away from Habermas, he became the figure who said media are good. Actually, you can create a public sphere, you can create a democracy outside the state, everybody can participate, there will be equality and rational critical engagement thanks to the media, and so you can build democracy through the media. If you read him closely, that's not what he said, but this was the argument taken away from Habermas. He came to stand for this view. Yeah? There was another scholar, Benedict Anderson, who was a political scientist, and he specialized in Southeast Asia. He knew many languages, mainly focused on Indonesia, and he took up this idea from Habermas and built on it to say we had something called print capitalism. Capitalism, everybody knows, is bad, but print capitalism is good because it helps people to read, and when people read, they discuss, and their rational powers increase. They're able to form bases for agreement and reasonable disagreement. I disagree with you, I'll tell you why. We can still be friends and disagree. So print capitalism, Benedict Anderson said, creates that kind of new, in a way it was an educated elite, which will then go on to create national independence in different countries. You could say maybe to some extent that happened in India, it happened in Indonesia, other countries. Educated elites, the Nehruvian, Nehruvian elite, who were lawyers, journalists, and formed, arenas of discussion that could put forward ideas that allowed national independence to go forward. Yeah. But as media evolved, now media are fundamentally, you don't know what is going to come in the media, you see, because when you say you're representing the world, well, then the world contains so many things not in your theories, which are not in your norms. So your norms are saying you should be secular, but the world is religious. Your media are opened up, well, then religion comes into the media. So what do you say about it? Right? So this immediately poses language. So, everything is in English, and Indian languages are second status or third status. You open the media, well, the languages come in. How do you have discussions between language communities? What will be the norms of adjudication? Who is to be right? How do you discuss these things? Right? So the openness of media, which is to say, they bring you the world. By the same token, they can challenge your norms, they can challenge your theories, and we have witnessed that process of challenging acquiring a greater and greater magnitude over the years. Yeah? In my book, which Dr. Reddy referred to, Politics After Television, I coined the term split public to refer to the fact that it was English media, it was Hindi language media, and during the Ram Janmabhoomi Andolan of 1987 to 1992, the English media were critical of the Ram Janmabhoomi Andolan, they were critical of BJP, they were critical of Vishwa Hindu Parishad. The Hindi media, in balance, was supportive. Some sections were enthusiastic supporters. Yeah? And the RSS themselves made this judgment that English criticism has also helped us. Supportive Hindi, enthusiastic Hindi coverage helped us. Hostile English media also helped us. Okay, so it is showing how the colonial history of misunderstanding, hostility between English and the Indian languages became an opportunity for mobilization in the context of Ram Janmabhoomi. Yeah, where if you criticize something and it is done in English, that becomes a proof that you are right because your enemy is saying you are wrong. Yeah? So that kind of dynamic showed how once television was introduced, 1987, you had the Ramayana epic began to be broadcast, and it created for the first time a kind of common awareness of some, shared symbols, shared narratives across the country. And the effects of the television broadcast worked out, were felt through the press. It was through the press that the ground level understandings actually worked themselves out. And even when the English press was hostile, it worked to the benefit of the Andolan. That was the nature of the strategies that were adopted during the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. Of course, now split public would have to be revised because perhaps now the Indian language media are even more influential than the English media. That's something we can discuss, and I can learn from all of you, I'm sure, but it's not what it used to be in the 90s. Yeah? Now, by way of this thing is gone. Okay, I can, I'll mail it. Oh boy, no Wi-Fi. I'm trying to use my hotspot. Yeah. Just a few. what I want to talk to you about now is the national emergency of 1975-77, because I think that is a useful episode to examine the work of media and how it began to change following that period. Emergency was basically watershed. Things began to change after the emergency. So, in social science we talk about periods, periods, this period, that period. Emergency is it's between two periods, let's say. It's the high point of the Nehruvian project and it's the beginning of liberalization. Convenient to think about it in that way. Yeah, I sent it to Dr. Ed. Yeah? So, so the emergency was a period when basically before the emergency there was only one permissible understanding of India as a nation. Indian Congress Party ruled the nation. They were the inheritors of independence. It was a kind of, it seemed like a kind of political monopoly, yeah, which is why people like Ram Manohar Lohia, 1967, had this theory that the only way to defeat Congress is all the opposition, whether they are left, right, far, right, they must all join together. Only then you can defeat the Congress Party. Yeah, that was his theory, 1967. It came close, right, because after that Congress Party had to split, old Congress, new Congress. But in 1977, it worked. Yeah, that was after Lohia died, the Janata Party. Yeah. Now you can say, in the process, the idea of party itself has changed. Because party, political party meant to subscribe to their views, to subscribe to their beliefs, national, secular, so many other things. But in this process of opposition unity to defeat the existing ruling party, the political party became simply a mechanism to capture power regardless of political views. And that sense of the political party as simply a mechanism to capture power with no respect to political views, that has become very influential. And I think the emergency was a period when that really got embedded. Yeah? Now, so during the emergency, which was called for reasons that, we don't have to go into that, the way the emergency was conducted was that all the opposition leaders were jailed. In a sense, dissent was banned. Yeah, consent was made obligatory, right, by the law. Media were censored, controlled, and the government itself introduced. They brought massive expenditure into the domain of publicity, right? Highest ever expenditure on Division of Audiovisual Publicity, Department of Field Publicity, Information Broadcasting Ministry. During the years 75, 76, 77, expenditure many times the level of what it had been previously. Okay? So they threw everything they had into the propaganda machinery, spent huge amounts of money, created new forms of appeal, new ways to reach out to masses, and so on. So I just want to show you 2 or 3 examples of the kind of publicity that came up during the emergency. When the technology allows us to do so. anytime you have questions or thoughts, comments, please feel free to share them. And let me tell you, you may think your question is stupid, but it is never stupid. If you had a question, it's not stupid. Okay? Others will also have something very similar. So don't be afraid to ask questions that somehow you feel they're not up to your standard. So I'll come here now. Right. So this is one example of the resistance by the media. Indian Express famously published an editorial, the blank, right? A blank editorial. It's a silent protest against the censorship. And in a way, what they're saying is media is now an open battlefield. We are engaging, right? We are engaging by showing that we know it is a battlefield. We are showing the contours of the battlefield. Rangmanch is here, right? So that was a interesting move that Ramnath Goenka made at the time. But there were also copious billboards, other forms of communication, all kinds of vehicles, including posters, magazines, billboards, yeah, and they focused on economic issues because that was still it was not cultural issues so much. So that's the point I want to make. Until the emergency, economy, economic productivity, economic growth, those were the main focus of propaganda until that time. Yeah, so in a sense, this Nehruvian idea that if we grow the economy, culture will take care of itself. If people are able to feed themselves and live decent lives, we don't have to worry about their culture. You know, it will automatically, those problems will solve themselves. And so this is the kind of belief underlying these communications, reduction of inequality. When do you see today towards reduction of inequality? That's not a theme that you see very much today in propaganda, but that's the kind of thing you would have at the time. And these are more specific. Smuggling is anti-people, yeah. But the slogan here, be Indian, buy Indian. So in that sense, there's a cultural elements that came in. Be Indian, buy Indian. It was, I believe, introduced during this emergency period, yeah. And of course, that takes a much greater role as the years go on. And FMCGs absorbed and reproduced propaganda in their own way. So this is from Amul. Some of you may have seen these. The MISA, the notorious MISA Act, under which the opposition was being jailed, it became an accompaniment to having Amul butter, maintain internal security, compulsory sterilization, again the most notorious program of the emergency, became a kind of amusing accompaniment to private commodity consumption. Now, it is not to say that you can be critical of those programs and still enjoy the advertisement. That is the genius of both of these. It doesn't ask you to take a choice, this side, that side, whatever side. I like Amul butter, I enjoy this communication. Yeah? So a new style of communication which reflected the political environment but immunized the private sphere from it in some way through commodity consumption. Yeah? So this kind of thing happened. I believe this is the last one, so let me go back now to my you can turn it off. Yeah, so these ads show how the private sphere of commodity consumption could appear to be spontaneous. There's no overt coercion, nobody's telling them what to do. This is reflecting the consumer sentiment, consumer mentality, and so it is showing also the power of the advertisement, about which we can say a lot. Let me just say very briefly, the advertisement is a form of sponsored communication where the sponsor does not seem to be important at all. It is the communication that is important. It seems to be a free expression of sentiments anybody can share, but it does not fall under the realm of propaganda. But if you think about it, why is it not propaganda? Okay, not political, but it is also in the same sphere as politics. It is also able to have influence. So if you think about it, the story is much more muddy. And again, we can talk a lot about it, but there is a history here which is 18th century history. Okay? 18th century history where you may remember United States, the rebellion against British colonial rule, 1776, right? What was the slogan? No taxation without representation. They were being taxed, but they did not have representation. What was the taxation? Taxation was on paper. The taxation was on newspapers which were collecting advertisements. British government wanted to tax them. And so this became a battle for enlightenment, that we are freely expressing our thoughts, our ideas. British government is taxing them, preventing us from reaching the poor people through our communication because they're taxing us. And that battle won that campaign won the day on the American side. Yeah? So advertisements were not taxed. It has a carryover effect until I'm not able to determine exactly when, but until maybe the 70s in India also, no taxation on advertisements. No taxation on advertisements. And so this is a Western battle, but it had a global reach. It had a global reach because the advertisement was such an important entity. Yeah? Again, we can say more about that. Now, let me come to the question of law and order. How can we understand this in relation to the evolution of law and order? I've already said a bit about it. But briefly, the 19th and 20th century history of capitalism, you see a shift from rent seeking to profit seeking. What does that mean? So in the rent seeking phase of capitalism, the main source of value, as people understood it, was land. You had land, you could make money. You rented it out, you cultivated it, you tenant farmed it. Land was the source of wealth. And the term real estate, anybody know where does this term real estate come from? What does it mean? So real estate is actually French. Real, l'état real. Yeah? So it refers to royal estate. What that refers to is all the land was owned by the king. Only the king had the authority to own, the right to own land. Okay? So to that extent, land represented a concentration of power. The new kind of economic thinking that arose in the 18th century, so-called mercantilist thinking, David Ricardo and others, said it's not land that is the source of value and wealth, it is labor. And labor, everybody has the capacity to labor. Every human being can labor and create wealth by working on nature and making things for his or her satisfaction, for sale. So to think about economy in terms of labor rather than land was a democratizing influence. Right? It was no longer about what the king wanted to do and this kind of exclusive power. It became a power that was generally available, and that is the move to profit as the basis of generating value in capital. Rent seeking means I own the land, I will own it in perpetuity, you come, you rent, and my only interest is in getting more rent. I don't care how you produce your agriculture, whether you're using efficient farming methods, inefficient farming methods, I want more rent, that's all. You know? So the shift to profit seeking opened up the question of efficiency, productivity, you know, all these things that we associate with modern capitalism, yeah, increasing economic value in general. And this is the phase of free market. Free market where everybody has capacity to labor, they produce, generate wealth. This is also the phase in which theories of of media, such as by Habermas, they are also located in this phase, in this historical period, 1830 to 1870, when the market was somewhat free and there were individual producers competing with each other freely, no monopoly, no oligopoly. That was where you could have a public sphere, where you could have ideas freely exchanged, no censorship, and democracy could flourish and flower and so forth. Yeah. Today, we are dealing with a return to rent. Right? Today, we are dealing with what is called digital rentier capitalism. Digital rentier capitalism. Yeah? And how does that arise? Because now we have increasingly media platforms are the new real estate, where there is scarcity. Yeah? Media platforms are the real estate where, you know, it is the access to attention is controlled. Yeah? So the rentier economy of digital capitalism corresponds to the rise of the attention economy. And okay, let me actually try to get that little more here than I want to, maybe too much detail here, but so attention is a bottleneck. You want to pay attention to everything, but I have only so much time, my mind is small, I'm not so intelligent, I can pay attention to this, I have to forget those other things. That's the context where all the media are operating, and we are also understanding that. And the job of the media companies is to capture our attention, yeah, which is scarce. And it is in that process that the media environment has changed. So we'll have much more to say about it, but I just want to conclude with this point that without some kind of a public technological platform, the problems of attention fragmentation and social disharmony can only increase. And that question of public ownership or control of technological platforms obviously correlates with this larger question of world order. I know these are big questions, but that is the context in which these changes have happened. Okay? So that concludes my presentation for today, and I'm happy to take questions, if there are any. Yes, indeed. Yes. The big tech.
the way these big techs are operating in India.
Yes.
So again, we are clearly in the state of flux, and obviously you come from that land, so obviously you have a better understanding of what is happening.
We are
here.
all from the same place. We read the media.
Yeah.
All the media I read is available to all of us.
So I'm trying to understand, taking a macroscopic view, we as Indian media student, how should we look at this changing world order, and also what do you think as an expert, subject expert, and also coming from the very states, how the Indian media laws, how they would change in this particular pretext?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Very good question. Very difficult question. One thing I'll say is that there is a strong tendency to look for the national interests, and the national interest can often become the boundary of our concern, our interest, our attention, and that is not enough. Yeah, because as Trump's election has shown, the whole world is worried about who the United States elects as president, because the whole world knows that everybody is affected by who is elected in the United States. That's one data point to tell us we are in an international world, globalized world, but we are not prepared for it. We don't have the frameworks, which are all nationalist, to such an extent that if you present arguments that are internationalist, you can lose your audience very easily. You can be seen as, straying from the point being national. So that is, the second is that we have to consider the possibility that this liberal era of fair dealing, of formal equality before the law, of regulated treatment to minimize discrimination, those kind of apparatuses of the liberal era, we are clearly moving away from it. It's been happening for some time, but when it happens in the United States, you can say it's really happening, right? Because they themselves claim to be the foundation of world order. That was always the understanding. And indeed, when Trump got elected, everybody said, now everything is off the table. We don't know what's going to happen. Because precisely, he's a gambler in a sense. He's not interested in norms. Laws are only a means to achieve whatever he wants, etc. Third point is, there has been such an attachment to United States as the only country that can uphold world order, which people like, even Democratic presidents like Obama and Biden have repeatedly said, only the United States can uphold world order, and we are free, we are beautiful, etc. Meanwhile, China is able to produce electric vehicles at 1/3 the price of what the United States is able to produce. Free market, hello? No, this is authoritarian. It is, all means must be used to double, triple the price of Chinese cars to limit their market. That's only one indication of the extent to which they will are prepared to distort the system in order to retain US leadership. That's even the liberals. Yeah, so in a sense, the liberal system is compromised from within by the kind of attachment to this idea that only they can save the world. And to give you one example, so Elon Musk has said, we are going to create societies in Mars. Space travel, rockets are already going up. I am sending them up. I do everything I claim to do. I do it. You see, car, this, that, rockets. We'll have societies in Mars, but it's going to be driven by capitalism. to which China and Russia, okay, China being still formerly communist country, Russia formerly communist, now not, but authoritarian, they are saying, no, cannot be capitalist, it must be for universal interest. Everybody must benefit. You cannot have companies capturing the resources and creating this imperial story again in outer space. We don't want that. Now, scroll back to when the space race began, when Soviet Union launched the first satellite into, which was the first country to launch a satellite into outer space? Soviet Union. Which was the first country to put a man outside in space? Soviet Union. So when that happened, United States came out and used the United Nations to say peaceful uses for outer space. Whole world must share in whatever is there in outer space. No one country should dominate. Everybody should be equal. All should enjoy benefit, etc. That memory is gone, and now this kind of approach is taken. So you can also say that the American approach has been inconsistent, that the liberal ethos has been flawed by an excessive attachment to capitalist norms, which end up distorting the outcomes that are claimed for liberalism. And China and Russia are showing the limits of that. They are actually far more progressive in many issues. These are not the only ones. Now, you can say they are pretending they are actually dictators. The point is that they are widening a debate that is otherwise not happening at all. And they are introducing a very valuable point of view. Yeah? So you ask, what should we think about? We have to recalculate. We thought China and Russia are bad and America are good. We have to keep our minds open and say, what is the discussion? What are the positions being taken? And, you know, where do we stand on this issue, that issue, and not follow blindly any one country. Yeah. Last point, it's very clear that digital media are, they can have a fantastic democratizing effect. Anybody can produce, anybody can upload, anybody can make a statement, become famous, become influential. But that represents an enormous danger at the same time, because if anybody can do it, then how do you control society? They may choose things that are totally undesirable. So the birth of digital media has given rise to the birth of surveillance and control and coercion on a scale that we have not seen before. It is not necessarily that the agents carrying out this surveillance, control, coercion are necessarily evil people or having a negative ideology. It's also a reflection of the dangers of the technology which they are trying to limit. Yeah? And we have to keep that in mind, that we don't take received opinions for granted, but cultivate a critical attitude to the stances that are offered to us before we take an opinion. So that's a very general response to your question. Yeah? Yes.
India is also trying to do its own way, and obviously we have significant Indian diaspora in USA, but recent this visa controversy, and we'll only come to know the clear picture post the oath-taking ceremony. So my question is here, in case if there is restrictions on visa, and then obviously Indian diaspora, the kind of people we have, and they are also voters. So again, point I'm trying to...
No, they are not voters. They cannot vote.
Okay, but the people who have now they have green card, yeah, but some of them they have only working visa.
Yeah.
And if it is not continued, then obviously all of them, they will have no option but to come back to India again. And there are many scholars who are kind of celebrating it. They're saying that this is a permanent solution to Indian brain drain, because now these people, because they are not supposed to work there, they have to come back, and obviously they can contribute to the Indian society. So what kind of effect you feel it would have on the...
It's hard to say. It's hard to say, and it's clear that the Trump cabinet itself is divided on this issue. So, I mean, Trump's method seems to be to embrace opposites. Embrace opposites and let the chaos, be a disruptor. Disruptor is the new, that's what you want to be. You want to be a disruptor. So that carries a unpredictability with it. So it's impossible to say what will happen. Yeah. And of course, the other thing that you didn't mention, but Trump was very fortunate that the economy was in an upswing and he benefited from that. Nothing to do with him. Everybody's predicting a recession now. And that is going to be very difficult for Trump because he doesn't know how to deal with bad image. And it could lead him to take many steps that are left wing, right wing, whatever it is. But it's going to be even more turbulent with the recession, if the recession comes. People are predicting it. But your point about brain drain, I mean, of course, yes, people should come here and work and so on. It's just that take myself. I'm working on India. I continue to work on India. I'm not, so yes, people will work on other subjects, but it is not that, it's a one-way process. There is a two-way street here. That's all I want to say.
Mechanism again. So I had little difficulty understanding that. And also how digital platforms, using digital platforms, we are coming back to rent seeking.
Yeah. Okay, so everything is coming to me free. I watch my YouTube videos, I read my, or I find where it's free. I avoid all the subscription portals. I only go where it's free. And I tell myself, I'm a smart fellow, I'm getting all this for free. But we all know that my attention is being marketed and sold, and that's how the content is being provided for free. It is not free. There are algorithms that are able to judge my engagement in the media and treat it in such a way that maximum profits can be achieved. So that is the rent is indirect. To say you don't feel it. You may not feel it. Right? It's much more indirect. But for the same reason, it is much more powerful. And we see elections being influenced, campaigns being influenced, without people realizing, positions, they are nudged towards one position or other by algorithms. I get in my video feed, you watch this, you watch that. The same way people are led to directions that they may not have chosen at all. And that is the effect of this rent-based model that we have now. And their interest is only in increasing their rent. They don't care whether it's socially positive or negative. Their only interest is increasing their rent. Yeah, so that is the exact analog of what we had before. Indifference to the method. Yeah.
Basically, there was this story yesterday in Financial Express about data localization, and Mukesh Ambani is extremely aggressive about proposing that data owned by Indians in various platforms should be based out of India, and many of Indian companies are demanding for data localization. So do you see this rent-seeking attitude is demonstrated by these big corporations, specifically Reliance? Because last year I happened to meet a person from Times of India group, and he said that the way Jio is now, the Jio corporation or Jio networks is actually spreading in India. It is now as if roti, kapda, makan and Jio. That's how their dominance is. So do you see this rent-seeking attitude is demonstrated by Jio when they say that data should be localized in India? And where do you see this is going from here now?
Well, when they give free data, well, it's not free. They're able to influence you, and many people have attributed 2014-2019 election to Geo. So, I mean, I think in addition to data localization, there must be other provisions about more democratic forms of control, and that question is not being posed. Yeah.
Let's stop here then for today. And I'll see you tomorrow around 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, so there'll be readings, and you'll be able to.
I'll make a drive and then I'll share it with all of you.
And I might, because I know I've also been a backbencher. I also never used to speak in class, so I understand. You know, you are reluctant to speak, but now I'm on the other side. Okay, so I have to try to make you speak. So I may think of suggest some activities where we're talking to each other and then come up and respond to the class and so forth. Okay? So that it's a little more two-way.